It is the order of this court that you shall be punished by death.
Imagine a man so twisted that he kidnapped, assaulted, and murdered a helpless child.
That point, I was so psychotic. I was extremely violent. She had to go. I don't care how she had to go.
Another slaughtered his own wife and 5 innocent children in cold blood.
Brutal murders of a Collier County mother and her 5 children. The confessed killer, her husband, the kid's dad, has finally been sentenced.
Men who left behind trails of terror, kidnapping, torturing, and murdering up to 25 victims. Their crimes so monstrous that even seasoned investigators were shaken.
Why are you doing this?
Because we hate you. Your baby is going to be taken away.
These men are not just criminals. They are the worst of humanity. And now they sit in a tiny cell, waiting for the moment when justice finally catches up to them. Brace yourself as we uncover the chilling stories of every man on death row, waiting for execution. Part 1. What makes a man slaughter his own children? In 2014, Timothy Jones Jr., a South Carolina father spiraling into paranoia, committed an atrocity that defies comprehension. His 5 children, Mara, 8, Elias, 7, Natan, 6, Gabriel, 2, and Abigail, 1, died in the home that should have been their sanctuary.
Timothy Jones murdered all 5 of his children.
He now faces the death penalty.
Jones's unraveling was no secret. The Department of Social Services had flagged his abusive punishments, forced exercises, chokeholds, but failed to intervene. On August 28th, his rage fixated on Natan, accused of breaking an outlet. Jones forced the boy through hundreds of squats and push-ups until he collapsed dead. Initially, Jones claimed he found Natan dead in his bed, but experts later suggested the boy had been strangled. Panic set in. Jones, a user of synthetic marijuana, heard voices urging him to save his other children from life without parents. He strangled Elias with his hands as the boy begged, "Dad, take me with you." Mara pleaded, "Daddy, I love you," before he silenced her. For Gabriel and Abigail, their necks were too small. He used a belt. The horror didn't end there. Jones crammed their bodies into trash bags, doused them in bleach, and drove for 9 days through the South. He bought saws and muriatic acid, potentially intending to mutilate or dissolve their remains, but couldn't follow through. A DUI checkpoint in Mississippi exposed his SUV reeking of decay. At trial, his lawyers argued psychosis from drug use and a childhood brain injury. The jury saw a calculating killer. Jones had researched prison rape scenes, purchased items that could be used for mutilation, and evaded police for days. In June 2019, they convicted him and sentenced him to death, a sentence upheld in 2023. Today, Jones awaits execution, a living ghost paying for the day he turned parenthood into butchery.
Been taken.
What do you mean?
Taken by a stranger.
On June 21, 2013, 8-year-old Cherish Periwinkle followed a stranger into the Jacksonville night. She never came home. Her mother, Rain, was counting pennies at a Dollar General when Donald Smith slithered into their lives.
Is one of Jacksonville's most heartbreaking cases, the abduction, rape, and murder of 8-year-old Cherish Periwinkle.
Posing as a good Samaritan, the 56-year-old sex offender offered to buy the struggling family clothes at Walmart. He looked harmless, a silver-haired man with a grandfatherly smile. It was a lie. After hours of weaving his deception, Smith lured Cherish away with the oldest trick, a promised cheeseburger. Surveillance cameras captured the moment he led her past McDonald's and into the parking lot. She climbed into his van. It was 10:44 p.m., the last time her heart still beat. What followed was a parent's primal terror. Smith raped Cherish with such violence that her eyes hemorrhaged, then strangled her in a creek behind a church. When police arrested him the next morning, his pants were soaked. His DNA told the story science couldn't erase. Smith shouldn't have been free to kill. Released just 3 weeks earlier from a child-related offense, he'd spent 40 years terrorizing Florida's children. At his 2018 trial, jurors wept through autopsy photos before taking 12 minutes to seal his guilt. The death sentence came later, a hollow victory. Now he clings to appeals, dragging Cherish's family through fresh hell with every legal maneuver. But true justice died with the little girl whose orange dress still haunts Jacksonville's memory. In the early 1980s, Charles Ng and Leonard Lake transformed a remote Sierra Nevada compound near Wilseyville, California, into a nightmare factory. Hidden behind a bunker's secret doorway lay a torture chamber outfitted with a foam-padded bed, plastic buckets, and rolls of toilet paper, a cell for their victims. Their crimes were methodically sadistic. Targeting men, women, and even infants, they lured victims to the property under false pretenses. Men and children were often killed immediately, while women endured weeks of rape, starvation, and psychological torment, all documented in Lake's journals and videotapes. One tape shows Ng slicing off a victim's shirt with a knife, coldly remarking, "You can cry, but it won't do any good. We're pretty cold-hearted." Lake, obsessed with creating a real-life sex slave colony inspired by the novel The Collector, saw Ng as a willing partner.
I want to be able to use a woman whenever and however I want. And when I'm tired or satiated or bored or not interested, I simply want to put her away, lock her up in a little room.
Together, they incinerated bodies, leaving behind 45 pounds of bone fragments and a treasure map, leading to buckets stuffed with victims' IDs, hinting at up to 25 deaths. Officially, Ng was convicted of murdering 11 people, including 2 infants. Their spree unraveled in 1985 after Ng shoplifted a $75 vice. When police arrested Lake, he swallowed cyanide sewn into his clothes. Ng fled to Canada, but was captured after shooting a security guard in Calgary. Extradited in 1991, his trial became California's most expensive at the time, delayed by Ng's constant lawyer firings and procedural sabotage. Convicted in 1999, Ng remains on death row at San Quentin, appealing his sentence for over 2 decades. With California's execution moratorium in place since 2019, survivors and victims' families still await closure, their pain compounded by Ng's relentless legal battle. September 19, 2009. Police storm a North Naples home expecting a welfare check. Instead, they find a nightmare. 6 corpses, a mother and 5 children, their throats slit. The killer? Their own husband and father, Mesak Damas. Days earlier, Damas's wife, Gurleen, had threatened to leave him after years of abuse. Instead of letting her go, he snapped. On September 17th, Damas left his job as a cook at Miller's Ale House early. He then bought duct tape and a fillet knife, returned home, tied Gurleen up, slit her throat, then methodically murdered their children. Mesak, 9, Maven, 6, Marvin, 5, Megan, 3, and Morgan, 19 months. By dawn, Damas was gone. He fled to Haiti on a one-way ticket, later telling U.S. Marshals he didn't deserve to live. Captured on September 23rd, he confessed, blaming bad spirits for the carnage. Extradited to Florida, he oscillated between courtroom theatrics, calling himself Child of God, COG.
And I'm safe. I'm safe.
An eerie silence with his competency to stand trial repeatedly questioned. In 2017, he shocked the court. No trial, no fight. He pleaded guilty, demanding death. The judge obliged, 6 death sentences. Now he rots on death row, his appeals denied as recently as 2023. Justice for Gurleen and 5 children slaughtered in their home. It's a life, and death stolen too soon. Some killers claim madness, others blame circumstance. William Clyde Gibson murdered because he could.
Convicted serial killer Clyde Gibson is fighting to overturn one of his 2 death sentences. A Floyd County judge sentenced Gibson to death for the 2012 murder of Stephanie Kirk.
In April 2012, Gibson's sisters made a grisly discovery in his New Albany garage: the naked, mutilated corpse of 75-year-old Christine Whitus, a family friend. She'd been strangled, sexually assaulted, and left with a severed breast. But Whitus wasn't his first victim. Weeks earlier, Gibson had lured 35-year-old Stephanie Kirk to his home. After strangling her, he broke her spine and violated her corpse, burying her in his backyard like trash. When police confronted him, Gibson casually confessed to a 3rd murder. Karen Hodella, a Florida beautician he'd stabbed to death in 2002 during a drug-fueled argument. His crimes were trophies. He tattooed Hodella's murder date on his arm. He kept Whitey's breast in his car's console. At trial, he shrugged at his death sentence. "I deserve this," and later shaved his head to flaunt a Death Row X3 tattoo. Prosecutors secured 2 death penalties, but questions linger. In prison interviews, Gibson boasted of 30-plus victims across multiple states, even implicating himself in cold cases. Yet with his 2014 sentencing, Indiana closed the book. Now, as Gibson rots on death row, authorities wonder, did they bury the truth with his victims? These men committed crimes so horrifying that society deemed them beyond redemption. Now they wait, counting down the days until their final breath. But does execution truly serve justice? Or is it an easy way out for monsters who inflicted unimaginable suffering? Let us know what you think in the comments below. Should the death penalty remain, or is there another way to serve justice? If you found this video gripping, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into the darkest corners of true crime. Until next time, stay safe, and remember, evil can hide in plain sight.